The following episode is part of a series produced in conjunction with the 14th Shanghai Biennial titled Cosmos Cinema.
Hello, my name is Ben Easton. I'm part of the curatorial team for the current Shanghai Biennale. To mark the exhibition, we're conducting a series of short interviews with artists featured in the show, considering their work and its relationship to the exhibition's overarching themes. And I'm very pleased today to welcome Lucile Desamory onto the podcast. Hello, Lucile.
Hello, Ben.
So a quick introduction. Lucile describes her work as interested in the frontiers of perception. Her installations, films, radio plays, and live performances incorporate painting, drawing, embroidery, collage, photography, film, and her voice. They are collaborative. She writes films with her brother Damien Desamory and works on sound with Nicolas Bussmann, as much as they are cross-disciplinary. The theatre play The Extraordinary Wig was made with Antonia Bayer. The performance Astroseismology with Sabine Erklentz and Margaret Kammerer. Her second film, Télé-réalité, which premiered at the Berlin Film Festival in 2020, was directed in collaboration with filmmakers Glody Mupikai and Gustav Fundi. And she is currently working on a television series that will also be a feature film, which is called, in English, The Swirling Tangle. And Lucile, I'm going to ask you to give it its original pronunciation.
And in Dutch, it's called De Wervelende Wirwar.
Thank you very much. So, Lucile's Dark Matter is a short film situated in a section of the Biennale which is addressed to phenomena that are hidden from sight, obscure to reason, and might be, in a conventional sense, unknowable. The works gathered here consider how experiences ranging from divine revelation to supernatural encounter, or indeed creative inspiration, can unsettle our conventional understanding of the world and call into question the constructs through which we organize it. So perhaps, Lucile, you could start simply by introducing dark matter and perhaps touching upon some of its confusions of fact and fiction.
So the short film Dark Matter, I made it in 2011, I think, or I don't remember. But so I was inspired by the accounts of witnesses of UFOs flying over the sky in Belgium in 89, 90. And so I was very interested in the way these sightings were uh, told, were either written or they were recorded by a group of investigators on an answering machine. And so that was like the beginning of this film. This is where I started. And then, so I collected these writings and audio recordings from the internet or from a book or two books, which are a big and amazing, very fascinating collection of all these accounts of UFO sightings in Belgium in 89. And I built the film around that. So I started with this kind of documents and then pushed it into fiction, or in this blurry place where is it fiction or is it not? This is also why I am playing the character of the woman writing the letter, because by me playing her, it's like then it becomes fiction. And of course, what fascinates me in this story, and this what fascinates me and what I'm working on constantly, is this moment where you don't know what is in front of you, and it's like, is it the wind gust, or is it a ghost, or is it a meteorite, or is it a UFO? And then suddenly you have this this really very, very tiny moment where you think, or where it's not even that you think, you feel that you're witnessing something which is completely out of whatever you could have imagined, or which are only in stories you were told. But this is then, it strikes you. And then this is the moment for me, which is a very subversive moment, because it's the moment where your perception of things may change. It may also not change. I mean, depending on how you react to it. So it's also a very free moment, but it's usually, and because it is so tiny, this is even more important to me, because it is like almost, it's not taken seriously. You know, people will laugh at it, or they will think, yeah, this is, she was drunk, or she la la la, or, you know, this kind of, and this is why it's almost like I feel that I have to be careful with this moment, because too many, it's too often made fun of. And it is much, much, much more powerful than anybody who makes fun about it realizes. And this is what is in this letter. And it's obviously not someone who has been thinking about, I mean, who's like, I don't know, it's someone who lives in a little town in Belgium, and suddenly she opens the window and then her life changes. And I don't know who she is. If she's an artist, she's an old lady, she's a housewife, she's a teacher, or, you know, I don't know.
I guess what's so interesting is that the way the film is structured, so you're watching it, you listen to these various accounts of people who are driving along a road and see what they understand to be a UFO. And it's also worth saying that this is based in a very real event or a phenomenon which happened in Belgium in the late 1980s. And as you describe it, it was a consequence of Belgium having this suddenly illuminated, very dense motorway network, which made it visible from space. And as soon as people became aware of that fact, there was this spike in UFO sightings. So watching it, you have this, you're listening to all of these accounts, all of which sound plausible. And then you come to this longer, fictionalized very lightly, but fictionalized account that you deliver as the voice, which gives a little bit more detail and describes an encounter and describes the experience of it being quite shattering. And what's interesting for me in the film, and we talked about this a little bit before I mentioned it, is that you're describing how this encounter with this unexplained phenomenon was unsettling for the person who experienced it, how they then began to question everything in their daily lives. And watching the film over and again, I suddenly started to question everything about the film. I found myself having a similar kind of retrospective. You know, I had to double check whether there had been UFO sightings in Belgium in the late 1980s, and then I became suspicious about whether the audio used was real or fictionalized. And so it does this very neat thing of itself formally reconstructing that experience of having an encounter, which, because it's deeply felt, unsettles the whole reality of which it's comprised. And it's really interesting. I hadn't thought of that actually, but did you think of you're giving your own voice to this account? Is that a way of precisely dignifying it, of making clear that, you know, you're not just appropriating this account, but actually you want to take it, you want to consider very seriously what it means to have an experience like that?
Yes, this is why I give I give my presence to it, because it is so important to me, and also to make clear that I'm not making fun of it. It's a way of sharing the emotion, because when I read the letter, I felt it so strong, and there was no other way. It had to be me, you know? That's also why I changed from a man to a woman. That's the only thing I changed in the whole.
Yeah, it's tremendously effective. It really communicates this sense. I guess as soon as anyone watches any kind of account of UFO sightings or encounters with extraterrestrials, the assumption, the first way of thinking is that there has been a misunderstanding or a misprision. But what your work does so effectively is communicate that there is this sense of, I guess you talked about this kind of boundary between reality and fiction, but also between the imagination and what's perceptible. And actually, I hadn't thought of this before, but now thinking, there's another film, Eau des Coeurs, in which I think you quote Emily Dickinson, and you say that it's that famous quote, "The brain is wider than the sky." And actually, that seems to me something that's at play both in Dark Matter and in your work. And there's an easy way of reading this, which is like, I guess, reading your work, which is that we as humans are not capable, that the universe exceeds our understanding, that we can only access a fraction of it. But actually, there's something slightly more interesting in that I get the feeling in your works that, as in that Dickinson quote, there's a sense of the imagination exceeding the universe, that actually the universe is a construction of the imagination, that it's not just that we are unable to conceptualize things, but actually that we are building the universe the whole time, and that things happen which force us to reimagine, or which force us back into rethinking. And I wonder how much of your creative process is about that, is about kind of thinking about how we construct the world, or how the world is constructed as a fiction.
Well, yes, that's the question. Also, because it's exactly this quote of Emily Dickinson, or the one which is in another film of Marguerite Porete, who was a mystic, and she also has this way of opening the understanding, like, okay, the universe, we are in it, but we are also making it. And filmmaking is exactly in this line of, and this is also what's so interesting with when you were saying between the fiction and the kind of facts. What is very interesting to me too is the place of the misunderstanding, is the place where it can go either way. And this is the place I want to keep open. This is also why the Emily Dickinson, I think this is what she does, is that she opens it so wide that it goes, that you are facing an abyss, which is like seeing a UFO, I guess. I mean, it never happened. I mean, I experienced things like this once, but I felt it once. And if you go for it, then the world opens. And as soon as you start believing this is true, or, then it closes again. So it's like, how do you keep it as open as possible? Or you always come back to this moment of to this particular emotion. And this is also why Emily Dickinson, I mean, how I read it, is doing it, is she's like putting this very fragile emotion in words so that you can always go back to it. This is also why in all my films, I like to leave the special effects apparent. I like them to be not perfect, so that there's always a crack in between. You can always, so I rely on the suspension of disbelief, but I also rely on poetry. And so it's a kind of trusting the spectators either way they go. I mean, I like to think I leave it open.
But I guess that process happens in various different ways in your work, actually. I mean, it's not just in Dark Matter that you are revealed to be the constructor of the story, the narrator of the story. In The Swirling Tangle, something very similar happens. And that actually we're introduced to you as a character towards the end who is writing or constructing the fiction that we are part of. And yet that itself then becomes part of the fiction. And there's this very nice song about the script girl having gone missing. So you're constantly reminded as an audience that you are, as a viewer, that you are being invited into a fiction, into a reality that is constructed. And yet that is also constantly broken down. So it's a very, I'm interested by that relationship, that it's not just a construction of realities, but actually this constant push and pull between what is constructed and what breaks down. which feels so much there in your work.
Yes, I think it's the most important part of it. Also because I usually film on location, and I work with professional actors, but also with the people I meet while preparing the film, and I film. And so there's always a kind of, the film is a fiction, but it's also a document of the shooting. So because when we are shooting, this is so intense, and it's almost like a gate opens to a kind of a psychedelic echoing with the world, which is only in this moment of shooting where we are, and also the people come and say, but what is happening? All these strange things happen. Is it going to be like this forever? I say, no, 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 no. This is too much energy for just to be forever. But it will be documented in the film, even if the people who watch it, I guess it's somewhere there. And then after the shooting, you can always go back to this feeling. But this is the work of the imagination, of art. And this is where I try to be as honest and to trust it as far as possible, because this is the tool I have for opening, or in a kind of sharing this kind of experience of the world.
I'm interested by that word trust you use, actually, that actually part of this allowing it to be open is a matter of, I guess, trusting that the work can communicate these ideas, but also that the viewer or the audience can engage their own imagination, will come along with it, will recognize these points. I mean, maybe this is to do, one of the kind of compelling things about your work is that often these eruptions or intrusions of the supernatural or the inexplicable are very mundane, or the settings in which they take place are mundane. And actually they can kind of, even in the swirling tangle, they can run the kind of gamut from a gust of wind to a kind of, David Lynchian kind of encounter. So I wondered about that, actually, about how you treat these kind of moments. If you think of, and how you relate to the mundane, or how you connect the supernatural to the mundane, and whether that's a preoccupation, whether this is something that you see every day, or whether these are epiphanic moments that only happen every so often, that are rare.
I think they can be both. They are both, depending on your state of mind. But I think what is important to me is that they are accessible to everyone. So that's why the mundane, it's because it's for everyone. It's like, it's nothing. It's just there everywhere. And it works all the time. There's no spiritual authority that I take as the filmmaker, or, it's just there. So that's why the mundane is very important for me. But then at the same time, it is also something which has the power to change things. And that's why it needs also something a bit more like striking sometimes.
Mm.
But you need both, so that you can see that it can be that what we are made to think is so extraordinary, and only for a few people who are very well trained, or who have done that all their lives. No, it's against virtuosity.
Mm.
It's a way of making it accessible to everyone. And this is also why the genre tropes are so important to me. It's again because it's something which the rules are so strict in the genre, that they're also very easy to bend. And because this form is a bit like, it's not very serious. It's not like, big films with big psychology, which I also like. It's not the point. It's just that my point is to free a space. And this is possible when the rules you can bend them, and it's obvious that you're bending a format.
Mm.
And so this is yes.
But I guess that idea of playing with those genre tropes, I mean, what your work does is it kind of how do you say it's aware of them, it uses them, it kind of builds these constructs and like allows the viewer to see these constructs being built, and then breaks them down or allows something in. And that kind of constant building and rebuilding is really interesting. And it relies upon the viewer, I guess, then recognizing those constructs, seeing that they can be changed, but then coming along with that process of reconstructing them. I guess when you were talking about Dickinson as well, and this idea of what the imagination can do, I mean, it's very much like that Hamlet quote about being bound in a nutshell and, you know, counting oneself king of infinite space. If it weren't for the dreams, and it's actually dreams are the way that break that closed nutshell, that actually there's something outside of you. I wonder if you think of dreams in relationship to your work. They can seem quite dreamlike. They have a dream logic. Is that something you're conscious of?
Yes, of course. I mean, I don't think, okay, this is a dream, but the structure, because I want to break the kind of the storytelling and the structures, the expected. I want to break the expected. So then, of course, it gets a dream-like thing. Like for my film Abracadabra, which is my first feature, it is almost like a dreamt documentary, because I shot in the place I grew up. I grew up. I didn't change anything. The furniture, everything is there. I play in it. My brother is in it. So it's almost like a documentary, except that it's on another level. So this is for me like a dream of a documentary. But for the other films, and this is where it's mainly also the haunted house, which is a very important figure in the films too, is also the thrift store.
Mm-hmm.
This is why it's in every film. I mean, in every feature, you have the thrift store coming back. It's because it resists. It is the place, the haunted place par excellence, and it's a place. It's also the place of memory, of course. This is why it's in the swirling tangle. This has this so important place in it. But it's also a place which resists categorization, or where the objects are or if you mean the order is in constant shape shifting. It's like a pile, and then you're never sure, was it like this yesterday or was it different, or so all the organization is kind of soft and shifting. This is why also the thrift store is so important.
I mean, what's curious about thrift stores as a kind of image of memory is that they contain other people's memories as well. That actually, if you shop in a thrift store, you're buying histories or worlds that are not your own. And I wonder if in that respect, you might talk about working collaboratively, because maybe it's important to stress that it's not just a world that you're creating, but it's a world that you're creating with other people. And I think that changes its character a little bit. I mean, how important is it to you to work collaboratively?
I mean, this is to me is the richest way. This is also what I wanted to say earlier, of losing about the trust. Voila, because it's collaboratively that you have the most. You can work the most on trust and what trust means, and also the fact that a film is not okay. It's me, and my brother. He writes. Damien Desamory writes everything, but then I am the director, and okay, so, but it's with everyone. The film is everyone who is in it. Everyone, and what I mean is I never know what the film will be in the end, and I also don't want to know. I'm not like the artist with the vision. I'm not like this. I mean, of course, I have many visions all the time, many ideas, but they are constantly, and this is where also then they are constantly, we go back to this reality and fiction, is that we are, in making the film, we are constantly hitting reality and then being transformed by reality. Reality is transformed by the ideas, but the idea is the same. And a film is, in the end, is the solutions you found. And these solutions, you can never find them before you face the problem. And so this is why I never know how the film is going to be in the end. This is because I go, and this is the trust, to trust the original intuition and the people who make it with me. Yes.
Lucile, I think we could probably talk about this for a lot longer, but I'm conscious that we're coming to the end. I think trust and collaboration is a really beautiful place to finish. And actually, we should thank you so much for your contribution to the Biennale, such a crucial part of it. And I hope, anyone who's seen the show will know where it stands and actually how it informs the work around it. Maybe, can you tell us when the Swirling Tangle will be available for people to watch?
Well, we don't know yet. We've really just finished it. And so now we are in the process of submitting it to festivals. And but it's really, really fresh. It's like we finished last week. So now but yes.
Congratulations. And I urge all of our listeners to keep an eye out for it. Thank you so much again. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you, Ben.
Thanks.